This is absolutely horrifying. Jacob Fatu was discovered unconscious and bleeding profusely underneath a collapsed scaffolding structure just minutes before his scheduled match with Drew McIntyre, and what makes this discovery absolutely terrifying is that WWE officials believe this was not an accident. This was a deliberate attack disguised as a workplace incident, with someone sabotaging the scaffolding to make it collapse on Fatu in what could have been a fatal assault. The Samoan werewolf was rushed to the hospital with life-threatening injuries including severe head trauma, possible internal bleeding, and multiple broken bones, and the entire WWE universe is in shock wondering who would be evil enough to orchestrate an attack that could have killed Jacob Fatu. I need you to drop a comment immediately if you think this attack on Jacob Fatu represents the most dangerous and cowardly assault in WWE history, because this wasn't a fair fight or even a backstage brawl. This was someone setting up a death trap designed to seriously injure or kill Fatu while making it look like an unfortunate accident. Whoever did this didn't have the courage to face Fatu man-to-man, instead choosing to potentially end his career and possibly his life through sabotage and cowardice. And the fact that this happened in a WWE arena where safety is supposedly the top priority raises terrifying questions about security, protection, and whether any wrestler is safe. But before I break down every disturbing detail of how Fatu was found and the extent of his injuries, before I reveal the list of suspects who had motive and opportunity to orchestrate this attack, and before I expose the shocking security footage that WWE is analyzing that might reveal the identity of Fatu's attacker, you need to smash that like button if you believe WWE has a responsibility to find whoever did this and ensure they face severe consequences. Because what I'm about to tell you about the crime scene, the evidence discovered, and the panicked response from WWE management who are terrified about liability and lawsuits is going to make you furious. Let me start with the discovery of Jacob Fatu, because the details of how he was found are chilling and show just how close Fatu came to potentially dying. Fatu was scheduled to face Drew McIntyre in what was supposed to be a major SmackDown main event. About 30 minutes before the match, a production assistant was walking through the backstage area and heard a groaning sound coming from a storage area where various stage equipment and scaffolding were kept. The production assistant investigated and found a horrific scene. A large scaffolding structure had collapsed, and underneath the twisted metal and broken equipment was Jacob Fatu, barely conscious and covered in blood. The scaffolding pieces had fallen from a significant height, and the weight of the metal beams had crushed down on Fatu, pinning him underneath the debris. The production assistant immediately called for help, screaming for medical personnel and WWE officials. Within seconds, multiple people rushed to the scene and began frantically trying to lift the heavy scaffolding off Fatu. It took several people working together to move the debris because of how heavy the metal structures were. When they finally freed Fatu, the extent of his injuries became horrifyingly apparent. Fatu's face and head were covered in blood from a massive gash on his forehead. There was blood pooling on the concrete floor beneath him. Fatu was barely conscious, drifting in and out of awareness, and when he tried to speak, his words were incoherent. His left arm was bent at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. His breathing was labored and shallow, suggesting possible rib fractures or internal injuries. WWE's medical team immediately rushed to treat Fatu, checking his vital signs and trying to stabilize him. They were terrified about the head wound and potential brain injury. Head trauma is the most dangerous type of injury in wrestling, and the amount of blood combined with Fatu's confusion suggested serious damage. Medical personnel called for an ambulance immediately, recognizing this was beyond what they could treat at the venue. While waiting for paramedics, WWE medical staff tried to stop the bleeding from Fatu's head wound and keep him conscious and responsive. Fatu kept trying to stand up, fighting against the medical personnel, which is actually a bad sign because it can indicate brain injury and confusion. The medical team had to restrain him gently while repeatedly telling him to stay still. When paramedics arrived, they immediately assessed Fatu as critical and moved him onto a stretcher with extreme care, placing a neck brace to protect against potential spinal injuries. Fatu was loaded into the ambulance and rushed to the nearest trauma center. The entire process from discovery to ambulance departure took less than 15 minutes, but it felt like an eternity to everyone watching this horror unfold. Now let's discuss why WWE officials believe this was not an accident but a deliberate attack. The first red flag was the location where Fatu was found. The storage area where the scaffolding was kept is not a place wrestlers normally go. It's a designated area for production equipment, and wrestlers are actually told to avoid these areas for safety reasons. So why was Jacob Fatu there in the first place? According to the investigation, someone sent Fatu a text message claiming to be from WWE production staff, asking him to come to that specific location to check equipment for his entrance. Fatu, being a professional and wanting to make sure his entrance looked good, went to the location specified in the text. But when officials traced the phone number, it was a burner phone that couldn't be linked to any WWE employee. Someone lured Fatu to that location. The second red flag was the scaffolding itself. When WWE's safety team examined the collapsed structure, they found evidence of sabotage. The bolts holding the scaffolding together had been loosened deliberately. Support cables had been cut. The structure was rigged to collapse when someone walked underneath it or touched it. This wasn't an accident or poor maintenance, this was a trap specifically designed to injure whoever triggered it. The third red flag was the timing. The scaffolding collapsed exactly when Fatu arrived at the location, suggesting someone was watching and triggered the collapse remotely, or that the structure was rigged to fall when disturbed. Either scenario indicates premeditation and planning. This wasn't spontaneous, someone plotted this attack. WWE immediately launched a full investigation, bringing in not just their own security but also local police to investigate what was clearly a criminal assault. Attempted murder charges are being considered because the attack could have easily killed Fatu. WWE's legal team is working with authorities to preserve evidence and identify the perpetrator. Let's talk about the extent of Fatu's injuries, because the medical reports that have emerged are devastating. Fatu suffered a severe concussion from the impact of the scaffolding striking his head. He has a deep laceration requiring over 30 stitches. There's concern about skull fractures that are still being evaluated through CT scans and other imaging. Fatu suffered at least 3 broken ribs from the weight of the scaffolding crushing down on his chest. Broken ribs are extremely painful and create risk of lung puncture or other complications. Fatu is being monitored closely for any signs of internal bleeding or respiratory distress. His left arm is fractured in multiple places, both the radius and ulna bones in his forearm are broken. This will require surgical intervention to properly set and heal. Fatu is looking at months of recovery just from the arm injury alone. There are multiple contusions and lacerations across Fatu's body from the impact and being pinned under metal. His back, shoulders, and legs show extensive bruising and cuts. While these injuries aren't life-threatening, they're extremely painful and will take weeks to heal. The most concerning issue is potential spinal damage. The force of the scaffolding collapse and the weight pressing down on Fatu created serious risk of back and neck injuries. Fatu is undergoing extensive neurological testing to ensure there's no damage to his spine that could cause permanent disability. The realistic recovery timeline is months at minimum. Fatu will need surgery on his arm, extensive treatment for his concussion, time for his ribs to heal, and physical therapy to regain strength and mobility. We're looking at potentially 4 to 6 months before Fatu could even think about returning to wrestling, and that's if everything heals properly with no complications. Now let's discuss the list of suspects, because WWE's investigation is focusing on several people who had motive and opportunity to attack Jacob Fatu. The first obvious suspect is Drew McIntyre, the man Fatu was scheduled to face that night. Drew has been increasingly aggressive and willing to cross lines in his feuds. Could Drew have orchestrated this attack to avoid facing Fatu, or to send a message to anyone who challenges him? However, Drew has an alibi. He was in a production meeting with multiple witnesses at the time Fatu was attacked. Unless Drew hired someone to carry out the attack while he established an alibi, it's unlikely he was directly involved. But WWE isn't ruling him out as someone who might have paid or influenced others. The second suspect category is bloodline rivals, anyone currently feuding with the bloodline faction. Fatu is a key member of the bloodline, and taking him out could be seen as weakening the entire group. Several wrestlers have ongoing issues with the bloodline and could theoretically have motivation to attack Fatu. The third category is jealous competitors, wrestlers who resent Fatu's push and position in WWE. Fatu has been rising rapidly up the card, getting significant TV time and high-profile matches. Some wrestlers might view him as taking opportunities that should be theirs. Jealousy is a powerful motivator for violence. The fourth category is personal enemies from Fatu's past. Jacob Fatu had a long career before WWE, working in various independent promotions. Could someone from his past have followed him to WWE seeking revenge for old issues? This seems less likely but can't be ruled out. The most disturbing possibility is that this was orchestrated by someone in a position of power within WWE. Someone with access to schedules, backstage areas, and the ability to send convincing text messages. Could a WWE official or authority figure be behind this? That would be an absolute nightmare scenario. Let me share some shocking details about the security footage WWE is analyzing. The storage area where Fatu was attacked has limited camera coverage because it's not a high-traffic area. However, there is footage from adjacent hallways showing who was in the vicinity before and after the attack. According to sources, the footage shows several people passing through nearby areas during the relevant timeframe, but it's unclear if any of them were actually involved in the attack. The angles don't provide clear views of the storage area entrance, making it difficult to definitively identify who went in or out. However, WWE's technical team is enhancing the footage and analyzing every frame for clues. They're looking at things like shadows, reflections, and even attempting to identify people by their gait or clothing. This forensic analysis takes time but might eventually reveal the attacker's identity. There's also footage from exterior cameras showing the loading dock area. If the attacker brought tools to sabotage the scaffolding, they might have entered through the loading dock. WWE is checking all entry and exit points to build a timeline of who was where and when. The most frustrating aspect is that whoever did this was smart about avoiding cameras. they either knew the camera blind spots or got lucky. This suggests either someone with inside knowledge of WWE's security setup or someone who carefully scouted the location before attacking. Now let's discuss the impact on WWE's programming and storylines. Jacob Fatu was in the middle of several major angles, and his sudden injury forces WWE to completely rewrite their plans. The match with Drew McIntyre obviously had to be cancelled, disappointing fans who were looking forward to that encounter. The Bloodline storyline that Fatu was central to now has to be adjusted. WWE might use Fatu's injury as part of the storyline, having the Bloodline seek revenge against whoever attacked their family member. This could lead to an investigation storyline that plays out over weeks or months. Drew McIntyre is in an interesting position. He was supposed to face Fatu, but now his opponent is incapacitated. WWE gave Drew a different opponent for that night, but the question remains whether Drew will be involved in the storyline about finding Fatu's attacker. Even if Drew didn't do it, he might become a suspect within the storyline. There's potential for this to become one of WWE's biggest whodunit mysteries since Who Ran Over Stone Cold Steve Austin in 1999. The attack on Fatu could be the beginning of a months-long storyline with clues, red herrings, false suspects, and eventually a shocking revelation of who was responsible. Let me address the safety concerns this incident raises. If someone can sabotage equipment and set up a death trap in a WWE arena, what does that say about security and safety protocols? Are wrestlers safe in their own workplace? Can WWE guarantee that something like this won't happen again? WWE issued a statement saying they're conducting a comprehensive review of all safety and security protocols and implementing enhanced measures to protect talent and staff. But what does that actually mean? Will there be more security cameras? More personnel monitoring backstage areas? Stricter access controls? The reality is that WWE arenas are huge with hundreds of people coming and going, production crew, wrestlers, staff, vendors, contractors. Creating a completely secure environment is nearly impossible. Someone determined to hurt another person will find a way unless security is so tight it becomes impractical. This incident has wrestlers scared and demanding better protection. Several wrestlers have reportedly approached WWE management expressing concerns about their safety. Some are even requesting personal security or refusing to go to certain areas alone. The attack on Fatu has created a climate of fear and paranoia. Now let's discuss the legal implications for WWE. If Fatu's attack happened due to inadequate security or safety protocols, WWE could face massive liability. Fatu could potentially sue WWE for failing to provide a safe work environment. Even if WWE wasn't directly responsible for the attack, they could be held liable for not preventing it. WWE's legal team is working overtime to document everything and build a case that WWE took all reasonable precautions. They're arguing that this was an unprecedented attack by a malicious individual and that no security system could have prevented a determined saboteur. Whether that argument holds up legally remains to be seen. There's also potential criminal liability for whoever carried out the attack. Attempted murder charges are being considered by local prosecutors. If caught and convicted, the attacker could face decades in prison. This is no longer just wrestling drama, this is a serious criminal case with real-world consequences. Let me share some heartbreaking details about the reaction from Fatu's family. Jacob Fatu comes from the legendary NOI wrestling dynasty, and his family members are devastated by what happened. Roman Reigns, Fatu's cousin, reportedly rushed to the hospital when he heard about the attack. Roman has been by Fatu's bedside and is demanding that WWE find whoever did this. The Usos, G and Jimmy, are equally furious and have vowed to find the attacker themselves if WWE's investigation doesn't move fast enough. The protective nature of the NOI family is legendary, and they view an attack on one family member as an attack on all of them. This could lead to the entire Bloodline faction uniting to seek revenge. Fatu's immediate family, his wife and children, are traumatized by how close they came to losing him. Fatu's wife reportedly broke down when she saw him in the hospital, unable to process how a routine workday almost became a tragedy. The emotional toll on the family is immense and will take time to heal. Make sure you're subscribed to WrestlingNewsCC with all notifications on because this story is developing rapidly with new information emerging daily. Jacob Fatu's attack is the biggest story in wrestling right now, and we'll be covering every update, every lead, every revelation as WWE's investigation continues. Drop a comment right now with your theory about who attacked Jacob Fatu. Do you think it was Drew McIntyre? A jealous rival? Someone from Fatu's past? An inside job by a corrupt WWE official? What evidence supports your theory? I want to hear your detective work and speculation. Smash that like button if you believe WWE must find Jacob Fatu's attacker and ensure they face the maximum consequences possible. This wasn't a wrestling angle gone wrong, this was a criminal act that could have killed someone. Share this video with everyone who needs to understand the severity of what happened to Jacob Fatu. This is bigger than wrestling storylines, this is about workplace safety, criminal justice, and ensuring that nobody else gets hurt. This is Wrestling News CC, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the most disturbing incident in WWE history. Jacob Fatu was found bloodied and broken under collapsed scaffolding in what appears to be a deliberate attack designed to seriously injure or kill him. The investigation continues, suspects are being questioned, and the entire wrestling world is demanding justice for Jacob Fatu. Whether WWE can find the attacker and prevent future incidents remains to be seen, but one thing is absolutely certain: the business of professional wrestling has never felt more dangerous or unpredictable. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and pray for Jacob Fatu's recovery.